Okay, so here I am preparing some breakfast for my boyfriend and I. Now, because it's our anniversary weekend, I wanted to prepare something a bit nicer and a bit different than just, you know, the regular bread with some cheese and peanut butter or milk and cereal, something like that. So on days like these, I'm glad I have different breakfast options that I can rely on. So for example, last night, I decided to take out one of the sweet potato bowls, which I made a few months ago, and now I can kind of dress it up a little bit, add on a few toppings, and it's just a nice way to serve a more unique breakfast without putting in all the effort. Alright, so as I'm doing a bit of prep work for tonight's dinner, which will involve sweet potatoes, I also in the meantime want to start preparing for a healthy breakfast that you can easily freeze and take out whenever you want a healthy breakfast, but something different than just a piece of bread or yogurt or something along those lines. And since I'll be needing a few sweet potatoes for dinner tonight anyways, then I may as well turn on the oven and do both at the same time. So the first simple thing to do is just to give these a wash. And then in the meantime, I'll set the oven to 200 degrees. I also keep an extra brush to use only to clean produce, so things like sweet potatoes, carrots. Using a coarse, thicker brush makes it a bit easier to get off that dirt and grime off of rough things like potatoes. But it also just keeps it a bit more hygienic by keeping it separate and not using it for the dishes. Now on to the next quick part. So what I want to make now are some sweet potato bowls where it's kind of like a sweet potato smoothie bowl, and you can add bananas, granola, goji berries, fresh raspberries, anything you want. And it's super delicious and easy to make. And also when you serve it to people for breakfast, it's also something a bit more unique to serve. So basically the next thing I want to do is just cut it up into smaller but still big chunks. Because if you put a whole big sweet potato like this into the oven, then it's gonna take much longer to cook than if you cut up into smaller bits. So something like this. I cut that sweet potato into thirds and then cut those into half. Then there's no need to add oil onto this because it's gonna cook in the oven and it's gonna become a lot more softer and caramelized. So then you'll get that sweet flavor out of it. And also you don't need to worry about peeling it because after going in the oven, it's again going to become a lot softer, and then you can easily take off the skin of it. Alright, so those are ready to go in the oven once the preheating is done. And I'm going to start working on the sweet potatoes portion for the dinner tonight. So for tonight, I'm making a couscous salad with some roasted sweet potato. And so now I'm just going to simply cut them into cubes, add some olive oil, salt and pepper, spices, and just chuck in the oven with the others. But I think because they're smaller cubes, they'll cook in a shorter amount of time than the bigger chunks will cook. Alright, those look good. And next you want to add it all into the oven. So alright, now these look like they could use a little flip. And they're already starting to become a lot softer. Okay, so this is their current state, and I think they've been in there for around 45 minutes to an hour, but I think only another 10 to 15 minutes and then they should be done. Alright, it's the next day, and now it's time to make these into those sweet potato bowls. What you'll need for that is the sweet potatoes and the food processor, so I'm gonna get that one out. Okay, next up you wanna make sure that your hands are clean, because then you can just easily peel off the skin. See, it's coming right off like so. Alright, I got my blender ready. I peeled all the potatoes. It's also a lot easier to peel them after roasting them in the oven and then letting them cool down, so doing it the next day. So now I'm just gonna chuck them in here. I might have to do it in 2 batches depending on how much I can fill up. And now as for the rest of it, you just want to blend it with any kind of milk, so I'm using soy milk in this case. Some spices, I like to add ginger, nutmeg and cinnamon. And then for some extra sweetness, I'm going to add a bit of honey in there. You also don't want to overfill the blender, which is why I didn't put in all the sweet potatoes at once, and of course it will depend on how many sweet potatoes you roasted at the very start. I just poured in all the milk because I know I can add in more of the sweet potatoes most likely afterwards. I can't see the end, but I see it through. Okay, so I finished the first blending batch and you start to get a thick running consistency. Now, this is still a bit too liquidy. I'm gonna add in a few more sweet potatoes and then add in a bit more milk, add in the rest again, and I'll probably have to repeat this process twice because it looks like the blender is already getting quite full. And now batch number 2. Dangerous times don't fly too high. Be sure to keep them grounded. Okay, if it's not blending properly, then you need to add a bit more milk. And then sometimes you need to stir it to the bottom as well. Let's give that another go. Right, that's looking pretty good, so now I can pour this one out as well. Okay, it doesn't look like much, but once you start to dress it up with some banana or some nuts on top, it's going to taste a lot better, and it's also great to add a little peanut butter sauce to it. So what I like to do before freezing it is just, I like to portion out into one bowl, see what one portion would look like. Okay, generally I'd say that one bowl of this would be one portion. So that'd be around 1.5 cups, I'm guessing. Okay, that's 2 portions that fit in here. And then I like to pour them into these smaller containers because then I can put them into the freezer, label it as 2 portions, and then when we want to have it for breakfast on another weekend day or something, then I can just take one of these out for us. I keep them all in the same consistent size, so I'm just going to continue filling this up until it's all gone. If you do keep it in the fridge, then I'd recommend not keeping it out for longer than 3 or 4 days. It goes bad faster than you might think. So I'm going to continue filling all of this and then clean everything up, and then we'll have some other different yet delicious and nice breakfast to enjoy on those kind of weekend days where you want something different than just bread, but you don't want to spend too much time in the morning cooking. So I love meals like this for days like that. And also, now that I've portioned this one out with the bowl, I know that I can fill this up till around 90% full, and that should also be around the 2 portions. Okay, second one done. And then lastly at the end, I'll make labels for each one of them saying they're sweet potato bowls, 2 portions, and the date that I made them. Alright, these are done, ready to go into the freezer, and then I can defrost them for us another day to enjoy as a breakfast. So for breakfast, I feel like it's one of those meals where we're often stuck for time, and it's so easy just to grab out some milk with some cereals or some bread with a slice of cheese or some Nutella or something like that. So in order to increase the chances of us grabbing a healthier meal, I like to do a bit of prep work every few weeks, and I've already done a bit of prep work for this. So earlier I used the food processor to make some oat flour. And then when you make recipes like this, it's also a good way to use up ingredients that were about to go bad. So this really does not look the prettiest, but for example, in a Ziploc bag, I put 4 cups of mashed bananas a few months ago. Now, in order to keep the air bubbles in there, I'm just gonna slowly start folding the bananas in there. Alright, that's well incorporated. Now it's time to add the oat flour. Using oat flour is also a good way to get more fiber than if you were to use a regular flour. Now you want to add in the oat flour in small batches, just because you don't want it to be too thick, and it's easier to add on than to take out. If it's becoming a bit harder to mix, you can gradually add in a tiny bit more milk. Now, you don't need to add any sugar into this because the banana already gives it plenty of sweetness, but if you wanted to, you can always add in a bit of honey. But for the last touch, I'm going to add in a bit of cinnamon and nutmeg. So a few days ago I finished cooking all those pancakes. I had made quite a big batch, but my boyfriend's brother came to visit, so we ate quite a bit of it over the weekend. But there is still quite a bit to freeze to use as for a healthy breakfast another day. So I basically just wrote on there banana oat pancakes and the date that I made them. And then the way that I try to freeze them is to lay them flat. And then grab one of those plastic sheets so that they don't stick to each other. And then I'll put in the second layer. Okay, and then I'm also just going to keep 3 separate to make as a quick breakfast for my boyfriend to take to work tomorrow. But the rest of it is ready to go into the freezer. I'll put it in flat like so, but it's just very easy for example, if you want to make something a bit healthy as a brunch, then a lot easier to take out one of these than to have to make the batch and cook it all on the day.